Mariyah, hey there. How are you? I am so excited for us coming back together for Soil, Soul, and Spirit. And I am so deeply grateful for everyone who jumps in this evening, for everyone who jumps in tomorrow evening, the evening after that, and maybe even 10 years from now. I'm so deeply grateful for you all joining Mariyah and I. I'm Angel Shannon, founder and executive director of SIVA Health and the SIVA Institute. And welcome to Soil, Soul, and Spirit. Mariyah, if you will introduce yourself for those who are new to our podcast, please.
Yes, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. Whether it's your first time or you've watched all through the months of 2025, thank you so much for being here. I have the pleasure of being Angel's friend, and we are growing alongside one another. And I am a plant care specialist. I am based in Baltimore, Maryland, and I'm really excited for tonight's conversation.
Big time. So am I. I really am. I'm really happy that we're back together for Soil, Soul, and Spirit. And, I just wanted to say that this is a podcast about where nature science meets ancient wisdom. Mariyah and I try to really help us develop practices that allow us to slow down, reconnect, and live with more balance and harmony in our lives. And as two people who absolutely love all things nature related, plants, gardening, caring for plants and soil and everything that relates to nature, we come together to just help you see how much your own life mirrors nature, how you can bring more nature immersion into your own life. And just anywhere that you're craving more clarity, more connection, and a deeper sense of well-being, we like to be able to talk about that and offer you some tips, tools, and strategies for bringing those intersections together. And as I said, weaving more nature into your life. So this is our final episode for 2025. Mariyah and I generally get together on the third Thursdays of the month, but we decided to get on earlier because, we're in the holiday season. People are busy. You're busy. We also know that we want to give you some of these tips and tools and strategies for something we both really love, which is Winter Solstice, and talk about some of the things you need to do to prepare yourself for winter wellness, winter well-being, at the same time giving your plants a little bit of this nurturing and goodness too. So we're going to kick it off tonight with Mariyah first talking about the soul of plants, the soil, everything that we need to do. And I want to kick off with you first because I had a leaf drop. I lost a leaf on my fiddle leaf fig, and not just one leaf, two leaves. Now, those of you will say, and this is older because I saved it. I wanted to save it for tonight's discussion. Those of you who know me know I love plants. I'm a master gardener. I know all the things, but I don't know everything. And it happens to the best of us. So if there's anyone out there who's feeling sad or guilty or feeling like, what am I going to do? I don't have a green thumb. That's why Mariyah is here to kick us off with what we need to do for winter wellness with our plants. And I'm going to also tell you another thing that happened. I realized that another little green companion needed more soil. It was looking really, really bad. And so what I want Mariyah to talk about and share with me and you is soil, soul, and spirit. Mariyah, if you will.
Yeah, so firstly, I want to say that it is completely natural and normal for plants to lose some of their bottom leaves during the winter months or in general. It's important that I remind you that plants are living things, right? And just as we are growing and adapting and acclimating and such, so are they. They just do it at a slower rate, right? Or less visible to the eye than us. But they're going through changes as we are. And the care that they need right now is going to be really different come July. And the same goes for us, right? So when it comes to, or let's speak about really what's going on in the earth in general, right? And then how this trickles down to plants. So the winter solstice, which I'm really excited for, I've learned more about the solstice this year than I have in the past, and that's really helped me create joy and light surrounding it and looking forward to it. But essentially, the solstice is the shortest day and the longest night of the year. So if you have been struggling with the sun setting at 5 p.m. and you're wondering, oh my God, where is the end? This is the longest night of the year. So now the days will start to get very shortly, like incrementally, longer as time goes on, right? So that there's a celebration of that point. And what's happening is the Earth's equator, like we are the furthest from the sun at this point, or excuse me, December 21st, which is in 10 days. And so what that means, right, is during the winter months, we have a shorter duration of sun. So not only if you're feeling vitamin D deficient or you're like, oh my gosh, my skin is getting pale, plants are experiencing changes as well. So you may notice that, yes, through leaves dropping or leaves, another really big sign of or stress or change can be the leaves curling in on themselves. So not only are we experiencing a shorter duration of sun, but also the humidity levels are really different. So in the winter months, we tend to have our heat on, right? So it's drying out the air versus during the warmer summer or spring months, there is just not more water in the air, right? So you may notice not only your leaves dropping, but them curling in a little bit. This is definitely the time to relocate your plants if you find they're near a draft, right? You don't want to be blown with heat directly all day, so neither do your plants. So take some time to back them up from any heater, like space heaters or vents, things like that. And then you may notice, lastly, many other things, but just main changes. You may notice some like browning or yellowing of your leaves. And that is your plant communicating either over or under watering. And typically, when it comes to indoor houseplant care, most folks are overwaterers. I am on the other end. I tend to be an underwater, but I know they appreciate that more so. So that's fine. But just understand because we're not getting as much sun, right? It's cooler. Naturally, the soil too, it changes. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but the soil itself changes and things are just a lot colder. So things are going to go dormant or semi-dormant. There are plants that completely stop their growth, and there are ones that do this partially. And if you're able to replicate like the same conditions year round, then it's possible that they're not going dormant at all. But I think a large thing to do is just accept that this is different, right? This isn't summer. Winter is winter, and there's joy to be found there. So just accept, Angel, your fiddle leaf is just telling you, I probably need to be watered less. I'm not getting as much sun, it's just saying, Mom, I gotta go. And sometimes, right, just as they are like the plants outside, we spoke about that during one of our past fall discussions, but it's just very normal. Plants lose their leaves to conserve energy and to prepare more intentionally for the warmer months ahead. So it's a celebration, right? But it's very important to just embrace all of the change that happens in general.
Mariyah, that is so beautiful. I had a little tickle in my throat, so please forgive me with the coughing. But you said so many things that really tie into our discussion tonight about slow and sacred, slowing down, like we just accepting that this is winter. We're entering winter. We're in the final days of fall. We're coming up on the first day of winter soon. And there are going to be changes. There are going to be things that are going to change with our plants. They're going to need less of this, more of that. And that is a natural part of their own evolution, their own growth, releasing leaves or
Yep.
having different soil requirements, as you're saying. And I used to be, as a friend of mine would say, heavy-handed on the water. Every time I'd call him up and say, what's going on? He'd say, Angel, were you heavy-handed on the water? And then I'd have to say, maybe I was. And so we're going to talk about slowing down to be more mindful, to pay attention to what's happening in our own bodies, but also in the bodies of our plants. Mariyah, I know I don't have to ask you this, but I'm going to ask you about journal practice as it
Please.
pertains to our plants. Would you recommend that, people maintain journals that are specific for their plant care so that they can track and monitor the different seasons that their plants are, how their plants are doing in different seasons? What do you think about that? Maintaining plant journals or starting a plant journal?
Yeah. Yeah. I think sure, why not? I think any time that you're taking to better understand yourself or the life forms around you,
Hmm.
your green companions, I think it's a good opportunity, right? If it feels right, I say try it. I personally, I've never been one to document my plant care
Hmm.
personally, but that's because I have a very deep understanding of what dryness looks like, right?
Hmm.
And just overall care. I don't really document too much. A lot of
Hmm.
it is just knowing and
Hmm.
understanding.
Hmm.
So for some people, if you were to ask me, when's the last time you watered that plant? I could probably tell you 3 weeks ago, right? Just from my interaction with them. I feel like the more that you know them, the more you'll remember. But I think if it's a part of your practice and it brings you joy to kind of document that growth, why not? Something so in my personal life in my home, I do not document. However, in my work environment, I work at a plant shop, Be Willow, in Remington in Baltimore. Come by, say hello.
Yeah.
Um, but we do grow plants there, and so we monitor, right, what fertilizer was used then, and
Hmm.
right, how did this impact growth during this season versus
Hmm.
this season, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and it's just nice to celebrate in general. So I think if you find joy in documenting those things, like, oh, I got 6 new leaves on my pothos in February, right?
Hmm.
Why not? I think
Right.
that's just celebration, right? And that's a form of it. Or, oh gosh, I'm noting how many leaves I've lost during X
Hmm.
amount of time,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
That's something to be mindful of. So I think if it helps to jot it down and kind of interact with that
Hmm. Yeah.
relationship more, then why not?
Why not? Exactly. And I'm so impressed by your memory with your plants because you travel quite a bit. You're working full time. You're managing so many things. And I love that you always know where your plants are in their evolution. Like you said, I can look at it and say, I watered 3 weeks ago and whatnot. And I love that you mentioned that the more this becomes a practice for you.
Hmm. So, like I said, yeah, I think if you enjoy documenting what's going on with your plants, do that. Um, but I kind of just interact with them and they I keep up with them. So there's this one plant I have, for example, my philodendron cordatum. I kind of have it closer to the ground and I have it crawling up my living room wall. And oh, looks like
Yep.
Angel's back. Crawling up my living room wall. And every day when I come into my living room and I turn the corner, I'm like, oh my God, not a new leaf. Like, that's incredible. So And I think that's fun to celebrate because you'll be able to look back on what happened in the year 2025 versus where that plant is in 2027. So, yeah, I just think that was a really good question. And welcome back.
Thank you, Mariah. I'm hoping that my connection is secure here. So, yeah, we'll keep going. And yeah, so we were talking about,
See, right? Life is it's going to remind us to slow down.
yes, yes. And that's what I was just about to say about slowing down for our plant care. And this is, I think, not the season to, rush out and get new plants to fill in spaces and things like that. I mean, this is, for me, in my opinion, it's the time to like nurture what we already have. Mariah, would you speak to how plants can go through that shock, maybe moving them around too much or bringing new plants in from the environment they were in and things like that? Is there a recommendation you would give for those who are watching who say, I want more plants. I want to, build my collection or have more. What is your recommendation for that feeling? Is this like not the time to add in too
Yeah.
much?
Yeah, so I think firstly that's a very like natural feeling. Understand that we're not spending as much time at the parks,
Hmm.
right? Um, a lot of what was green outside is now
Hmm.
brown, and so I think it's natural to want to bring more greenery
Hmm.
inward. I don't think it's a bad idea. I brought a bunch of cuttings home myself today, but just understand that the rate, like, they're not going to perform right now like they will in the summer, and being patient and accepting of
Hmm.
that. It's really important to kind of not force it or overdo
Hmm.
it. Um, Something that does kind of help too in the winter is grouping your plants. So, like I said, the relative humidity and temperature in the air is
Hmm.
reduced as a whole, right? And by grouping them, you increase the relative humidity in that
Hmm.
environment. So, I've this past week, I've been doing a lot of rearranging myself and just rethinking their
Hmm.
placement. I'm like, oh, where you, philodendron, being across the room during the summer months when I'm getting like full sun hours of warmth, that worked
Hmm.
then, but it does not work now, right? So some of them I am inching closer to the window, but there are plenty that are low light tolerant, that are hardy. So I don't think it's a bad idea. I just think it's important to be intentional, regardless of the season, about what you're um, what you're bringing in, right? And I like what you said about maybe it's not the time to bring anything in, and rather nurture what you already
Hmm.
have. So, like I said, with the reduced sunlight, it's a really good opportunity. I'm not always the best at this, especially with my bigger
Hmm.
plants, but take time to clean the leaves. So, naturally in our homes, like dust accumulates, right?
Hmm.
I just gave this guy a shower
Hmm.
recently, so it's not dusty, but dust accumulates on the leaves. Dirt, if you have any dogs or cats, right? Pet hair, things are naturally going to accumulate on the
Hmm.
leaves. And I think it's a really good
Hmm.
time because you're not watering as much, because you're not fertilizing as
Hmm.
much. Take that time to like help out where you
Hmm.
can, and that's by helping it
Hmm.
photosynthesize more. And the less there is in the way of that light passing
Hmm.
through, the more energy the plant is able to harness and use to its
Hmm.
benefit. So I definitely agree with
Hmm.
that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Nurturing what you already have.
Nurturing.
I think that's a big point in
Hmm.
general.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, that just kind of leads right into another question that I had for you about, plant care. And that is, how do you know when, and this is something I recently experienced, and we were talking about this during our Fall into Freedom, the first episode that we did. How do you know, Mariah, when you have sort of like done all that you could? Like, let's just say you do have a plant that really is struggling. You can't figure out low light, more light, such and such, and the plant is like really, really struggling. You as a plant specialist, how do you know when it's just sort of time that you've done all that you could do for your plant, and maybe, what how do you just know when it's done?
Yeah, so I deal with this question a lot. It's a really, really good one. And I think it has a lot to do with being comfortable letting go and understanding that life always energy recycles, right? It doesn't leave, it just goes somewhere else. And so sometimes I tell folks, I'm like, hey, so your fiddle leaf, right? It doesn't mean it's dead. Even when you put it, let's say you compost it, that energy is going to be redirected into the earth. Let's say you put it in the landfill, regardless, eventually it's going to break down and nurture something or someone else, right? So I think it's important to accept things. I recently had a client who had a fiddle leaf fig too that was like lush and green. It had 17, it was so big, right? And it slowly started dropping all of these leaves, but consistently to the point where she was waking up and there's like 5 leaves on the ground per day. That is not okay. And I think you have to pause there and do some accepting and say, okay, whatever is going on is not working, but this is what I have to work with left. So if I were to lose all the bottom leaves on this money tree and only have a few leaves yet left, I would propagate it. So most plants you can propagate from their stem, or from a
Yes.
juncture, right? Depending on what kind of plant it is. So let's see. I've got so many around me, always in general. But let's say I was losing all of the bottom leaves on this jade plant here in this terrarium. Then I would simply make a cutting right here and I would propagate it, because what you don't want to do is hesitate to accept what's happening, and then you lose all of the foliage, right? You lose all of the leaves. That's what you don't want. So it's definitely necessary to propagate if you notice that the rate of stress and leaf lossage, essentially, is not slowing down. Use that. That's a call for help. Save the plant. Save what you can. You can root it in sphagnum moss. That's very popular lately, I've noticed. Or even just water. I propagate so much in water. It's actually a lot of what I'll be doing this evening is allocating some cuttings, because I have many that need to go in water. So, but yes, propagate, propagate, propagate. If it's past a certain point of no return,
I
there's
love
it
this.
likely has more to give
I
you.
love this. And I'm asking that question for several reasons. One, it's a perfect segue into spoil,
So
soul, and
really
spirit. And now me kind of talking about what we need as humans during the winter season, and how to establish more wellness. But also because I did experience that. I've shared this several times on the podcast. I called Mariah in a panic about my jade plant. It was a gift to me, and it was just had root rot, and I didn't know what to do. I was so distraught over the idea of having to. First of all, I love my jade plant, but the idea of just, oh my God, I've done everything, and thinking this is the end, and it is a very emotional thing when there are gifts that you've been given and things like this. And I'll never forget, Mariah was like, save what
yes.
you can. Save what you can. And to our
Yes.
theme tonight, slow down, Angel. Slow down, take a breath, take a pause. It's not the end of the world. Save what you can. And there's something very special, whether it's our plants or ourselves. There's something very special about, and this is something Mariah does a lot, and I do as well, placing a hand over your heart and just taking a breath and slowing down and saying, okay, let me think this through. Let me save what I can. Let me do what I can. I don't need to do everything in this moment. I will find my way forward, but I will save what I can. For humans, that looks like I will do what I can, right? So there's something
Mm.
very sacred about this time of year that really does encourage us to slow down and save what we can, do what we can, and be really, really deeply intentional about what we are doing. And Mariah mentioned something about propagating. Absolutely 100% am I a huge believer in propagating because you're building from something that's already healthy and growing as it is. So as humans, let's talk about how we propagate. How do we slow down? What do we need to be doing to be more intentional? So Mariah was saying earlier, we're getting closer to winter solstice. This is going to be the furthest point we are on Earth away from the sun. Going to be pretty dark. It's dark out. This week was extremely cold here in Maryland. It's been overcast and cold, and everyone who's calling me at the office is, Angel, I want to get some labs done because I'm so tired. I know it's got to be that I'm iron deficient. I know my vitamin D has got to be low, and all the things people are thinking. And while we don't want to discount that in terms of our health, we want to make sure that we're not iron deficient or vitamin D deficient. What I'm reminding people is it is winter. You're supposed to be tired. You're supposed to be ready to get in bed by a certain time in the evening. You're not supposed to feel like pulling an all-nighter when it gets dark at 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. So what happens in our brains is this darker it gets when we turn the lights out in the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland, our brains start producing melatonin. Cortisol goes down, melatonin goes up. There's an inverse relationship between those two things. Melatonin produced in the brain tells our bodies that it is time to rest. It's time to go to sleep. This is why if you turn the light on in the middle of the night and light comes into your retina, into the eyes, cortisol is produced because what that light is telling your brain is that it's time to wake up. This is why they say keep the lights off and turn the lights down and don't be on your devices in the middle of the night, because what you really want to do is have bathing your brain in that melatonin that gives you that rest and helps you create a really healthy circadian rhythm, a wakefulness and a sleep time. Plants have that too. They also have circadian rhythms where they're waking and sleeping. They don't need lights all day long and all night long, and I know Mariah has spoken about that. You can't have lights on them all the time. They have circadian rhythms just like we have
No.
circadian rhythms, right? And so the thing we want to be tuned into first and foremost, as Mariah said from the get-go, recognizing that everything that we feel right now, that tiredness a little bit, that wanting to rest, that wanting to cocoon a little bit, that unwillingness to do all the things, and maybe sometimes say, hey, I can't get together this weekend because I really need to rest. That's step number one. Step number one, let's slow down. Let's be really intentional. Let's honor the season and let's give our bodies the things that we know we need to do, that our bodies need, and do the things we know we need to do. Because on
Absolutely.
the other side of solstice, the earth starts making the journey back towards the sun, right? So this is going to be the furthest we are away, and then we're going to slowly start creeping back towards summer solstice, which is when we are at our closest point to the sun. Okay. So it's a really, really
Yes.
fascinating dynamic. Would you say so, Mariah, that just the idea of us being that far?
It's so beautiful. Yeah, I think it's so beautiful, and that's why I think it's something to embrace. And like I said for myself, folks, like, in general, so one of my nicknames, people call me Rise Sunshine. I've always really identified with that. But in this season, I feel like as this season comes around every year, I'm learning to become my own sunshine. And I feel in past years, I've struggled a lot during this time, especially in like the transition that time. But I've got a good grip. I've got a good list of things and activities to keep myself going and creating my own heat and my own light. And again, it's just a matter of accepting what is, and knowing that this is life's natural process, right? Like there's beauty in that. And the less that you try to sort of like resist it, ultimately, I've found so much more peace here. So, right, just trusting that again, we are not separate from the earth. We are a part. I say her. I address the earth as her, but we are a part of her. And just as she's going through changes and shifts, this is a natural, reoccurring process, and it's something to embrace rather than trying to, stray away from it. And the plants, they aren't, believe it or not, like they're dropping leaves. You think they're upset. They're not upset about it. They've done this for years and years and years and years before we were even here. They know what they're doing. The trees outside, they're not sad about this time. They know that it's important, and we need to take notes from them. They know that it's important to really use this time to harness and conserve as much energy as possible, and to set intentions for when the sun comes back around. And lastly, what I'll say related to this is, yes, yesterday was a really gray day, and I was looking at the clouds, and my coworker said, "What are you looking at?" And I was like, I'm imagining where the sun is, where it would be at this point. And I think at this time, it was maybe like 3 p.m. But I took some time to pause, and I'm looking at the clouds, and I'm like, the sun is probably right there, because typically at this time of day, this is where she'd be, right? So she's just covered by some clouds right now, but it doesn't mean that the sun is not there. It's just not visible to us in that moment, right? And I think it's all about perspective and sort of looking for the sun, because it's always there. There just may be some things in the way. So yes.
And I feel that way about the moon. Like I'm looking and I'm looking. I have this telescope, and I'm like, oh, I want to take my telescope out, and the cloud cover and whatnot. It kind of makes me, but like you said, it's always there. It's just not visible in the moment. And it leads me to, like, okay, what are some of the practices that we need to think about engaging in during this winter wellness period? And what I'm going to say to those who are watching either this evening or if you're tuning in after the fact, Mariyah and I put together a nice little slow and sacred winter wellness packet. It's just a little something that it follow up from our discussion tonight, and specifically about the human things, because I think we kind of forget about all of the tools that we have in our toolbox when it comes to wellness. A dear, dear friend of mine, Shaquana, who is joining with us tonight, she lives in upstate New York. And upstate New York gets very, very cold. And she was sharing the other week with me about how, after a while, it gets a little bit old when you're somewhere where every year you have such long, protracted winters and whatnot. And she said something the other day on her podcast where she reviews so many wonderful books. She was talking about a book called Hood Wellness. And we were talking about just the fact that everyone deserves wellness. She said that, and it landed on my heart so deeply, because we all need these wellness practices. We have so much in the wellness toolkit. And I like to just remind viewers that there's so many different aspects to wellness. And the acronym that I kind of put together is remember to take your meds, MEDS, mindfulness, exercise, diet, sleep, and supplements. MEDS, meds, right? So mindfulness. So this winter, I want you to really think about how to develop your own mindfulness practice. Mindfulness is not necessarily just sitting down and meditating. Mindfulness can be choosing to not have the television on when you're cooking your meals, or choosing to not have the television on while you're cleaning, or the radio, just so that you can tune into your own thoughts, be present with yourself. It can also be meditation practice. So that M can be 5 to 7 minutes or 10 minutes in the morning before you pick up your cell phone, before you scroll through anything, but just getting yourself centered and intentional for the day. Thinking about maybe 1 or 2 words that can guide you for the day. Like, what is my intention for today? My intention today is to be at peace or to be calm or whatever your intention is, right? So mindfulness can be anything that allows you to drop into the present moment. That is what mindfulness is. Unfortunately, we look around, we see all these different things that make us think mindfulness has to be something big and grand and whatnot. But mindfulness is really pretty simple. It's just remembering that wherever you go, there you are, right? You take yourself with you. And so dropping down into the present moment, not in the future, not in the past, not in all the things. Oh, 2026, let me get my vision board done. No, no, no. Let's slow down. Let's just be present in today's, moment, right? The E for exercise. Exercise means something different to every person. It doesn't necessarily mean, pumping iron or losing weight. Exercise for me in the meds is just movement, right? So choosing what movement you're going to engage in the winter months is really important.
And I think it's just really important to lean into those things. And since Angel was kind of going through that acronym MEDS and what it means to her, for me, like I said, creating your own heat, the E portion of the MEDS acronym, exercise, creating your own heat is really possible. You don't, lately, I found, because of how cold it is and how windy it is, definitely can discourage you from exercising, right? If you're used to running, it's not easy to run right now. If you're used to doing yoga outside, it's not easy to do right now, but it doesn't mean it can't still be done. And creating your own heat and carving out that time still is crucial. Like, it's not exclusive to a season. Movement is necessary. It may look different. It may be in different forms, but it's still very necessary. Angel, welcome back. I was expanding on just like your MEDS acronym and kind of what it means for me. And I was on E. So for exercise. And I was just speaking to like creating our own heat.
Yes. Thank you so much. I was saying this is the worst connection I've ever had. There's construction down the road from me. So I hope we'll be able to get through, and I apologize.
You look much clearer.
Oh, good.
And I'm sure people feel that way too. So this is great.
Good.
Yep. I think you're good.
Yep. So we were talking about the exercise, and exercise is different for everyone. And I was just saying that in winter, this is not the time to go hard and go fast. Like we were saying about our plants, this is not the time to like really go hard with them and be doing all the things. This is the time of year you may want to incorporate more of the slower, gentler practices, like some yoga, like some good stretching. For me personally, I've recently started practicing Pilates, and I am just so blown away. A lot of times people will say yoga and Pilates in the same sentence. They are two very different things, very, very different things. And I can tell you, maybe we'll talk about that in another episode. Pilates has me sleeping better, standing up taller. I feel like my posture is better. Muscles feel so much more relaxed. So this is the time of year with your winter wellness, really think about some of the more slower, gentler practices. It's going to be cold, particularly for my friends in the Northeast and higher up. And, you can sustain some serious injuries, just like with our plant companions, our green companions. They can experience some serious injuries when we try to go too fast or do too much with them. So we just want to be gentle with them, and we want to be gentle with ourselves, right? So again, slowing down, that's what this episode is all about, making it sacred. Make your own yoga practice sacred, your own Pilates practice sacred. Lighting a candle, maybe even putting on some gentle music. One beautiful thing about Pilates is it's not about doing all the things. And it's not about doing it fast. It's about, even if you just do one movement, 5 repetitions of that, holding that, breathing with that is more than enough. More than enough. And I am not a Pilates
Awesome.
instructor, but my Pilates instructor has said that Joseph Pilates, who was the founder of Pilates, well, the original practitioner of Pilates,
Oh,
always said that it was not about doing a whole lot. It was about being able to control what you are doing. So he called it, I think she said he called it controlology or something like that. But it really is
mhm.
about breath control and movement control. So if all you do is one thing or one posture or movement, being able to control that with breath and movement is more important than, doing a whole lot.
See, and I think that's a conversation of like overall intentionality. And I love that. I love that you shared your experience with it. Um, I was saying to folks, like, if you're a runner, it's harder to run right now. If you are used to hiking a lot, it's a little harder. Doesn't mean it can't be done. But finding these new things, I think winter brings about so much opportunity for that alone. So I'm so happy to hear that you're trying something new, and I encourage all of you that are listening, try something that you've been
Yeah,
wanting to. You really surprise yourself, I'm sure.
exactly. Exactly.
So I love
Thank
that.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And the last one is your sleep and your, well, D for diet. I think we talked about, yeah, yeah, D
Yes.
for diet. Did we talk about nutrition?
You didn't expand
Okay,
upon that.
so what I'm going to say to you all who are watching, this is part of that document in Winter Wellness, Slow and Sacred, Winter Wellness. Want you to grab this. I'm going to put the link in the show notes. Just come back to that because in here, I really talk about all the top nutrients that you want to focus in on over the winter. Specifically, things like vitamin D, we all know, but your omega 3, your fatty acids, your magnesium, vitamin C, your zinc, all these nutrients that just like your plants need over the winter months, you need too. So be sure to grab this at the end. It's really, really simple, something you can just plug up on your refrigerator, pin up on your refrigerator, or pin up on your, over your desk at work. And it's just nice having these little PDFs so
Wonderful.
that you can always come back to it and, build your own wellness practices. And I believe always know not just what you're taking, but why you're taking them. So a handy little document. I won't go into all the details, but just grab it in the show notes description. It'll be just a little link. You can use your QR code if there's a QR code for it as well. Download it. It's just a handy reference about diet and nutrition. And the last one with the meds is your sleep. Sleep is medicine. Sleep is good medicine. Your plants need some sleep and rest. We talked about they
Yes.
don't need light all day long and all night long. You need some sleep as well. This is a good time to really create a really nice evening routine for yourself to wind down, a cutoff time that says, okay, I've done enough. I've done all the talking I could do for the day. I've done all the texting and whatnot. Mariyah, do you have an evening routine, you and your husband? Do you have an evening routine of your own or a routine together?
Yes, absolutely. And that's something that has been like crucial for me lately. I definitely say we have our own independent routines, and then we have some like joint things that we practice together. Um, and sometimes, right, that fluctuates a little bit, which is fine. It's
Mhm.
beautiful. But for me, definitely has to do with just like we don't have thankfully any like LED lights in our home. Everything is very
Mhm.
warm. But I find myself lowering the lights, like you were saying, lighting a candle, decreasing my screen time. When we're at work, right? We're walking to lunch, we're outside, we're driving. There's so much interactions with
Mhm.
screens. And like you were speaking to earlier, it is so important to not only cut those things off when it's bedtime, but also just slowly reduce them as the day is going on, right? Similar to how we should reduce what we eat as the day goes on, right? Because we don't need more energy. We don't need to expel anymore, right? We need to wind down. So for me, it also includes like journaling, a deep stretch, even if it's, again, not many stretches, being intentional about the ones I'm doing. I could simply do child's pose, downward dog, and a forward fold, and that for 5 minutes makes such a big difference to how I rest that evening and my posture in which I do rest. So not only do I find myself sleeping longer, but being more intentional, yes, about that wind down time and what that looks like for me. And also just like reflecting on my day, repeating my affirmations to myself, right? You did a great job today. Tomorrow's a new one, right? What do we want to hold space for tomorrow? What did we learn from today? And yeah, yeah. I could go on and on, I feel like. But also, okay, lastly, I'll say a nice like candlelit shower. That's a very big thing for me. That does a lot to signal my
Yes.
body it's time for rest. We're cleaning off the day. It's time to rest and getting into something comfy. My robes they're always important to me, but especially in this season. Like the layering. Oh, yes. But what about you? What do you find you're slowing down and speaking to like things being sacred, those practices, those routines that you keep with yourself? That's really what's there's many things getting me through the winter, but that is really important to me. And it's keeping things sacred and slow
Yep.
for me.
I agree with you. I mean, that evening shower is everything.
Yeah.
That evening shower, a cup of tea for me is always a good
Yes,
thing.
see.
Yes,
Completely.
it's always a good thing. If it's
Yeah, definitely
chamomile, if
helps.
it's passion flower, if it's just
Mm.
anything that helps me, lemon balm is another one that I love.
Mm.
Blue pea butterfly. I forget blue butterfly pea. Anyhow, I get it tongue tied, but it's
It's a
yeah,
mixture.
but it's so delicious. But having just that cup of tea and that evening shower, and one thing I've got to I do that I am changing. No more checking email after a certain time. I do kind of check an email every now and then I'm like, Angel, why did you do this? So for anyone who's listening, like, don't do that to yourself. Tomorrow is indeed another day. There's nothing that you can do about it, and you don't want to take that into your dream state anyhow, whatever the email is. So, I'm being much more intentional about having specific times of the day that I do check email, cut it off at a
Mhm.
certain time, and then just really like, okay, hard stop. That's the end of all the intake. I'm reading The Alchemist in my women's groups.
I love that
I'm
book.
rereading this book. Many years ago, I read it, and now I'm reading it again, and it is just filled with gems.
Um,
So I'm also being intentional about taking notes. So I feel like, and I'm reading it at this time of the year because I feel like this is a great setup for the beginning of my next year, whether it's going to be January or February or what have you. It's like, okay, what do I want to be? What are the omens I want to be looking for? What are the signs and the symbols, and what does it mean for me to be following my dreams, and what does that look like, and all of that. So reading at night is very important for me. Now it's just a cozy way of getting
mm.
myself tucked in. And one thing I did want to say about journaling practice, of all my obsessions that I do have, Mariyah, I have several with knitting and plants and all these things. I have a new obsession, and that is fountain pens.
Please
Okay.
explain.
A friend of mine-
Because right? This is part of your
This
sacred
is part of my
practice. This has to
sacred
do with like
practice.
romanticizing your experience. So don't this is something I'm
Yeah.
excited. Tell me, what is a fountain
Okay.
pen? Tell
Okay.
everyone.
So fountain pen literally has it's filled with, you fill it with ink. So this is a Twibsy, a fountain pen, and it actually has what is called a nib. So this nib is the part where you write with, and there are broad nibs and flat nibs and medium
Yes.
nibs and
Okay.
all of this
Points.
points, right? And you write significantly differently with a fountain pen than you would a ballpoint pen or so, because you're holding it differently. And the fountain pen forces me to slow down, to make my journal
Mm.
practice more sacred. Having different colored inks. This is an aubergine purple. So writing in purple ink is it's a visual pleasure for me. And
Yeah.
when I'm slowly writing in cursive, it really has a profound way of slowing me down in my thought process, being intentional about the writing, getting me off the keyboard, getting me off the device. So this is part of my sacred slowdown winter wellness this
See,
year.
and I love that you shared that because everyone's little what you is your fountain pen, that reminder to slow
Yeah.
down, it is so can be so different for everyone, and I think that is so sweet
Yeah,
and something to look forward to doing every day,
exactly.
right? See, it's just about those really small sacred things, those habits that you hold with yourself, those things that you can't wait to do when it's time to end the day. That's so
It
special.
is. And I've been starting the day off with journaling, just a short little, what am I holding space for today? And I do that in my journal. And then in the evening time, what am I grateful for? What did I learn today? And something that Mariah says all the time, Mariah, correct me if I'm getting it tongue tied here, but you say, I
Oh,
am
that's
my most
okay.
important project. Is that what you always say? I
Yes.
am the most
Yeah. It's like,
important.
that's what I say. Or like yes, the most important project or thing I'll ever do is myself, like working on myself.
Exactly.
And it's so important not to tire of that work, you
Exactly.
know? Because no one else gets to do it. And I think, how cool is that? I don't know. I think that concept is, oh my gosh, that's really shaped my year. Whenever things are feeling turbulent or, right, I'm feeling unsettled, or oh god, I never knew, or I want to work on this part of myself, there's always work to be
Oh,
done, and applying grace and looking forward to that work, like, oh my god, Mariah, no way you made that silly mistake, no way you didn't prepare for that well. It's just an opportunity to grow, and you gotta laugh at it
exactly.
sometimes.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
but yes, this is the best project I'll work on. And if you can't, love you, how are you going to love
That's
everybody
right.
else? Or your
Or your
plants?
plant.
How can you love your plants if you don't love you? So yes, that is definitely something I keep
Yeah.
true and
So
remind myself of.
exactly. And we're works in progress. We are our greatest project, our most important priority. Our health, our well-being is something that we should look at as sacred practice. We're always
Mm-hmm.
working on ourselves, or at least we should be always working on ourselves. And this is the perfect season
Yeah.
to slow down, make that work sacred, make it mean something for you and to you, and really bridge that connection between yourself and nature and your houseplants and the greater. It's all one. Share these practices with someone that you love this season for the winter holidays as well as the solstice coming up. And one last thing I just wanted to say, even though it's cold, there's still a way to enjoy outdoor nature by, warming up, bundling up. There's a lot of goodness to still see if you can get outdoors, maybe a brisk little walk or maybe a few minutes outdoors just to see what nature's animals are doing. And as Mariah was saying, looking out and seeing, just where is the sun right now? Little things like this have such tremendous power to shift your mood and to shift your mindset and to really help you
Absolutely.
get grounded again in your life, in your one precious and beautiful life.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I
Yep.
agree.
So, thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. As I said, if you check back on the channel and on Mariah's Instagram, I will share with her and tag her in the QR code where you can get tonight's handout. Like I said, it's just a handy guide for slow and sacred winter wellness with all the little tips we were talking about mindfulness practices, as well as those really important nutrients you need to maintain good health and wellness this winter. Thank you for joining us. Mariah, thank you so much for carving out time once again for our conversation.
So happy to be here. And again, thank you for everyone who's tuned in over the year, all of our episodes. And there's just one last thing I want to leave you guys with, because I've been sitting with this a lot lately. Rest is not something that needs to be earned. It is a natural life process. You don't have to earn your rest this season. It is, you should embrace it. It is already yours. It's already yours. So yes, thank you so much for having me. It's been such a
You are
pleasure.
so welcome. You are so welcome.
And I just wanted to leave everyone with that. You don't need to earn
That's
it.
right. You deserve to rest. You don't
Yes.
have to earn
Yes.
rest, and you don't have to explain it either.
Nice and quick. No,
Yep,
no,
you don't have to
nope.
explain it. So, happy holidays, everyone. Happy solstice to you. Mariah and I will see you on the other side in 2026. Look out for our calendar of events and conversations. We hope you'll continue to join us for Soil, Soul, and Spirit. And we hope that you will join our mailing list and tell us what you want us to cover in 2026. What do you want to know more about in terms of mental health and wellness, and soil and
Mhm.
soul and spirit wellness? And what do you want to know about houseplants or gardening? Help us build our
Mhm.
2026 calendar by letting us know how we can help you make that connection between your own soil, soul, and spirit in the new year. Take good care, everyone. Thank you again for joining
Yes.
in.
Bye.
Bye.